This is a story about the Tiger Hotel in the ghost town of Burke, Idaho, up from Wallace, about 6 miles on Highway 4. Most people see this sign as you start to come into town, but the actual former community is about a mile up the road from where the historic turnout sign is at. The Tiger Hotel is mentioned on the sign. It was originally built by S.S. Glidden. It passed on to the Days in later life. It was around for about 50, 60 years. The creek ran underneath it, and there was a railroad spur that ran through it. So it had a pretty interesting history. As did the community of Burke, which was pretty substantial back in the day, and it started around the mid-1880s, and was pretty prosperous all the way up into the 70s, although I'd say it saw its heydays probably in the early part of the 19th century. It was built to house miners and mill workers up in Burke back in a time when the community was more isolated by the railroad. There was a restaurant in it. A beanery was what it was called back in the time. There were probably at least 3 phases of construction. Here it is in the 1950s, early 1950s. This front portion of it was probably built after the 1923 fire, and the older portion was the original building built back in the 1880s. Here's another film clip from 1926. You can see the rectangular front portion and the dormers wrapped around the back of it in the L. Here's a more detailed map of it. You can see the dormer in the back and the main building out front, the newer portion. And you can see the railroad spurs where they ran through it. There was a sawmill both upstream and downstream from it. And I believe the Canyon Creek probably ran through it in this sort of an orientation. The front of it was about 80 feet, the back about 100, and the dormers were about 200 by 40. There was a lobby and a dining room and a kitchen in front, and then you had the dorm rooms in the L out back. The railroad spur did go underneath it. They hauled supplies in and or out. It was eventually demolished in the 1950s. It had really seen the day. Transportation systems had changed, and the world was a different place. No longer the need to house miners and mill workers in Burke. You can see some of the original foundation stuff. I think the Canyon Creek was moved back to its original channel location. There's some foundations there from the old bunkhouse portion. The sawmill that sat to the south of it, the wigwam burner for it's still in place, the most visible remnant. Again, this foundation for the bunkhouse. The water line may have been the main that went through Burke. But that's my story. The Tiger Hotel in the ghost town of Burke, Idaho. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.